All right, stand by. 10 seconds.
Camera one.
Talent.
Ready, camera two.
And cue talent.
2, 1.
Roll to record.
Are Ted Cruz and the GOP establishment stealing the nomination from Donald Trump? I'm John Phillips, and this is The Rundown. The Colorado Republican Party celebrated Ted Cruz winning all the state's delegates without a popular vote by tweeting, "We did it! Hashtag Never Trump." The tweet was quickly deleted, but the damage was done. Trump and his supporters are crying shenanigans over the outcome in Colorado, and for months, there's been concern over the decision made by the Colorado Republican Party to cancel the popular vote for president. The Denver Post called it, quote, "a big mistake that looks worse with every passing day." The Trump campaign is also upset about what happened in Louisiana, where he beat Ted Cruz with 41.4% to 37.8%, but he and Cruz won the same number of delegates. And there are questions about delegates in Virginia, where Ted Cruz supporters are being picked to represent districts won by Donald Trump, which means those delegates could flip to Cruz on a second ballot and beyond. There are additionally concerns about the selection of delegates in South Carolina, where Ted Cruz came in not first, not second, but third. Finally, there are accusations of double crosses in Michigan. As reported on our own PJ Media, Cruz and Kasich were working together to put their own loyalists on the powerful GOP Rules Committee, but then the Cruz campaign double-crossed them and tried to take all the seats for themselves, leading the Kasich campaign to team up with the Trump campaign and shut the Cruz people out completely. You follow all that? So is Cruz stealing the nomination from Trump through shenanigans, or is this just how the sausage is made? And if it is the process, does the GOP risk upsetting Trump fans by using political maneuvering to freeze him out? To explore this question and much, much more, we're joined by our pal Scott Ott from his home studio in Dallas, Texas, and here in overcast Southern California, stand-up comic and PJTV contributor Stephen Kruiser. Kruiser, let's say Louisiana is the model for how this is going to play out. And you have the guy who didn't win the popular vote in the state and lost by 4 or 5 points, end up with the same number of delegates or more delegates than the guy who won. Will the GOP accept a nominee who wins like that, the voters?
Are we predicting anything still this year? I think this year all bets are off on anything like that. So yes, they very well could. I mean, this is why the Trump campaign can cry shenanigans all they want and everything, but this is the process. This has always been the processes change every year. Each state GOP can do what it wants, and it gets a little arcane in some places. I couldn't exactly explain to you how the Iowa caucuses work still, but and I've been writing about Cruz's superior ground game and delegate wrangling capabilities since last October and talking about it here, and that's what we're seeing play out now. And Trump knows that this is important now. That's why he hired a delegate wrangler last week, finally, because you need somebody out there working the system like this. Usually in years past, it doesn't get noticed as much because by this time, the presumptive front runner who had all the money anyway has been doing this all along, and he's there and nobody's scrutinizing it because he was supposed to win. So we just haven't noticed it as much in years past as we have this year.
You know, Scott, the big narrative from this campaign is that it's an anti-establishment year. You had Donald Trump doing so well on the Republican side. You have Bernie Sanders doing well on the Democratic side. If Ted Cruz is able to come back and take this nomination at the convention in Cleveland without coming in with a majority of votes or without coming in with the plurality of votes through tricks like the ones used in Louisiana, Colorado, other states, is this something that's a narrative that is helpful, where you collude with the establishment, where you collude with the party bosses to take these delegates and then end up with the nomination that way, or is that going to poison the well?
Do you get your talking points directly from Roger Stone? Because that is exactly how the Trump campaign wants to frame this. They want to make it look like there are shenanigans going on and there are shaky deals, and that it's something that is alien to the normal Republican process. It is not. In Louisiana, for example, the margin of victory, I believe, was in the neighborhood of 2.5%, and Ted Cruz and Donald Trump are going to come out with about the same number of delegates. The reason for that is that there were some delegates freed up when Marco Rubio left the race, and Cruz made a play for them. Cruz understands that there's only one way to earn the nomination. You cannot take the nomination. You have to earn the nomination by securing 1,237 delegates or more at the convention or before the convention. That's the game. That's been the game from the beginning. The rules have been publicly known. You know, this reminds me, Donald Trump actually reminds me a little of myself, because every once in a while, my family snookers me into playing a card game. I hate card games, but they trick me into playing a card game, and I'll sit down, and usually my mother-in-law and father-in-law are here, and we'll sit down and we'll start playing, and I think I'm doing pretty well, and then all of a sudden I get creamed, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, you can't do that. And everybody at the table looks at me and goes, yeah, we can. That's the way the game works. That's the way the rules lay it out. And the truth of the matter is, I don't care enough about cards to learn the rules, and I get beaten at card games. Donald Trump doesn't care enough about the nomination process to learn the rules, and he's getting whooped in some of these places.
You know, Trump has won more than twice as many states as Ted Cruz.
Yes.
You look at the calendar, you look at the states that haven't voted yet, there are a lot of delegate-rich states that have still not cast their ballots, including New York, where Donald Trump is polling north of 60%. The magic number he really needs to hit is 50% or more, so it looks like that's a possibility. In Pennsylvania, Trump is polling way out ahead. In Maryland, Trump is polling way out ahead. In California, he's polling out ahead. And in many of these states, Cruz is not only not coming in first, he's not coming in second. He's coming in third against John Kasich. Realistically, does Cruz have a chance at the nomination without playing games with the delegates, especially if he gets creamed in these states coming up?
You mean, what do you mean by playing games with the delegates? I mean, if playing, again, securing as many as he can right now isn't playing games with the delegates. I mean, and working for the second ballot isn't playing games either. It's smart. I mean, Donald Trump wrote The Art of the Deal. He should start making some deals somewhere. If he's so good at it, let him get out there and start making some deals. Mr. Art of the Deal is just sitting back going, wow, unfair. So Cruz is making deals. I think realistically, I mean, I'm excited. Your scenario right there makes California relevant in the GOP
California,
primary.
I think, will be king.
Yeah, for the first time. So I'm just happy that our stupid June primary is going to mean something for once. I may quit politics completely after this, because this is the only time the California primary has meant anything for the Republicans in years. But I think Cruz is working a second ballot strategy right now, and that's what he has to do. And you know, you got to figure out a way to do it. I mean, and Donald Trump is really good at negotiating things, and he needs to start negotiating things. I mean, if he can't accomplish what Gerald Ford accomplished, I mean, Gerald Ford was so wounded that he, as the incumbent, albeit unelected president, made it to the convention without the requisite number of delegates, and he still managed to work out a first ballot victory. So it's there for the taking for either one of these guys, however they want to massage it. Trump needs to learn how to massage better right now if he wants to win this thing.
He needs to go to one of those schools that advertise on Maury.
He needs to work on some hand strength there, yeah.
All right, Scott. Tell me, how damaging is it to Ted Cruz's chances at the convention if he wins the bronze at many of these states that are voting right now?
That's hard to say. I don't know if it's damaging or not, because things get strange if you don't have somebody who comes in with a first ballot delegate, majority. And so they have to work things out. If you look at the history of Republican conventions that were contested or brokered conventions, you'll find that in some cases, there were people who came in fourth place with single-digit numbers as far as percentage of the delegates who wound up getting the nomination and then winning the general election. It can happen. So really, all bets are off when it comes to, whether the finish is. We shouldn't be focusing, though, on who won how many states and what place they finished in. The only thing that matters is who can secure enough delegates. So if you come in with a majority, if Donald Trump had been winning as effectively as he said he could, then Ted Cruz would have nothing, because Trump would get it to 1237 before the convention. But Cruz has written a book that Donald Trump needs to read. He's writing it right now. It's called The Art of the Delegate. Read it, Donnie.
If it's a three-way race between Trump, Hillary, and Gary Johnson, who do you vote for?
Gary Johnson.
Okay, Scott, if it's a three-way race between those three, who do you vote for?
That's a good question. I started watching Stephen Kruiser's terrific PJTV interview with Gary Johnson, but I haven't finished it yet, so I don't feel like I know enough about Johnson to make that commitment. I'd like to keep my options open, frankly, because, and I do this all the time, but even when the primary came in Texas, I didn't make up my mind till the day of the election, because I want to take in as much information as I can before making that commitment.
If it's a three-way race between Ted Cruz, Hillary Clinton, and Gary Johnson, I vote for Gary Johnson. Now, I'm a Trump supporter, You are a Cruz supporter. Both of us don't stay with the party in the general if our guy doesn't get it. Is it possible for whoever the eventual Republican nominee, whoever that is, for them to bring the party back together for November, or is the well already poisoned?
I think once you get to the convention and people can start focusing on Hillary a lot more, I mean, once you get past the delegate thing, I think, you know, the electorate has proven to be nothing if not fickle this time around. So I think that once they really start saying, okay, here's your alternative, people like us may flip at the last minute too.
Think so.
I mean, I'm not sitting there saying, you know, here, take all of my money, I'm betting on myself for November for this. But right now, that was my answer to your question.
Let me give you another scenario. Let's say it's Hillary, Gary Johnson, and a general to be named later running as a Republican.
A general to be named?
A general to be named later, like an Eisenhower type. Do you stay with the Republican Party if it's someone that didn't run in the primaries but wins the nomination at the convention?
If it's
hasn't drawn blood against any of these candidates?
That would be dependent upon whom I like. You can't just plug anybody in there. No, you can't. Like I said before, I said the Ryan thing would be a disaster. I think that just the stink from the previous election would ruin that for me. If Kasich somehow what worries me, the wild card here is still Kasich. The fact that he's one of the three still standing worries me more than anything else in this election right now, because he's awful. He's a liar. He's a serial liar. He's awful, and then he tries to tell you that you're a bad Christian because you won't believe his lies. And I really want this guy gone. So I'm not counting him out for some, you know, we're calling them ballot shenanigans, or I'm not counting him out for some brokered nonsense at the convention either.
How about it, Scott? Are we all going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya in Cleveland?
Well, these things seem really intense at the moment when they're happening, but with the question is there enough passage of time between the nomination in Cleveland and the general election for people to get over that? Or is there enough, and this probably seems more likely, is there enough of an external threat that people who previously said there's no way I would vote for that guy if he got the nomination will now say, you know what? Things could be a lot worse. I guess I'm going to hold my nose. It's kind of like what the so-called establishment is doing right now with Ted Cruz. He ain't an establishment guy. They don't like him. But a lot of those kind of people are saying, well, I don't know. It's better than Donald Trump. I'll go for him.
You know, what we do with our ballots doesn't matter because we live in a state that's going
Yes.
to vote for Hillary Clinton regardless. What is interesting is, would we vote that way if we lived in North Carolina? Or will we vote that way if we lived in Virginia?
You do get some shield as a Republican in California.
Yeah.
You can just pretty much do whatever you want here. But I never really, but personally, I've never approached it that way. I've always acted as if my vote were going to swing the election in California. That's for me. There's no point in going through the process if I don't treat it like that. So I've always approached it that way myself.
Scott, wrap it up.
Let me just say, the fact that John Phillips asked that question shows that an intelligent Trump supporter can think through things like this and say, you know, it would be different if I weren't in California. It would be different if I were in North Carolina. Just as Donald Trump and his campaign should be thinking things are different in Colorado than they are in Louisiana, than they are in Indiana, than they are in New York. You should be running the Trump campaign, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I've said that all along.
Scott, you know in my heart of hearts I'm a partisan hack. And we'll have to leave it there. That's all the time we have for today, but now it's your turn. Is Cruz stealing the nomination from Trump? Tell us what you think in the comments section below. I'm John Phillips. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.